Fifth initiation, transition to greatness, the Theosophical Society. A great transition occurred in 1970 when Madame Blavatsky returned to Europe. Until this period she had spent her life traveling extensively and absorbing much occult knowledge. Now it was time for her to synthesize the great system of knowledge she had learned as it was practiced in the East. The mission given her by Master Moria in 1851 was so large that she was uncertain where to begin. She determined that she would first start acquainting the world with the latent potentialities in human nature. She did this by displaying certain psychic phenomena to a diverse range of people, in hopes to turning their attention toward the hidden sciences of nature. Her reasoning was, prove the soul of man by its wondrous powers, and you have proved God. As instructed by her masters, Madame Blavatsky arrived in New York City in July 1873. A year later, she met Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, who would be of enormous help in grounding the vast vision into a coherent structure. Olcott was a distinguished Civil War veteran and lawyer who had a strong interest in spiritualism. His personality was precisely the catalytic energy Madame Blavatsky needed to concretize the mission brewing within her. On September 8, 1875, Madame Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society together with Colonel Olcott, William Q. Judge, and others. The Theosophical Society became one of the most influential organizations in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Its inception marked the first time in history that an organization opened a channel for the communication of ancient teachings regarding the nature of the universe and the phenomenon of the human mind in its course of evolution. In a note dated July 1875 in her scrapbook, Madame Blavatsky writes, "Orders received from India direct to establish a philosophic religious society and choose a name for it, also to choose Olcott. Moria brings orders to form a society, a secret society like the Rosicrucian Lodge. He promises to help." Blavatsky, Collected Writings. The Theosophical Society. At its inception, the chief purpose of the Theosophical Society was to specifically investigate psychic and so-called spiritualistic phenomena. But the objective soon expanded into the following three chief objectives. 1. To form the nucleus of a universal brotherhood of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. 2. To promote the study of Aryan and other Eastern literatures, religions, philosophies, and sciences. And 3. To investigate unexplained laws of nature and the psychic powers of man. Blavatsky's personal seal was the Ouroboros, or serpent biting its tail, which symbolizes a complete circuit that contains all knowledge. In Hindu cosmology, the serpent biting its tail represents the point of the Mahapralaya, great seed time, when comes an avataric emanation to close the old cycle and regenerate the new cycle, preceding the Pralaya, new seed time. In other words, the beginning becomes the end, and the end is the beginning. A few months after the founding of the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky set to work on the writing of her first major work, Isis Unveiled. Isis is the symbol of nature, and Isis Unveiled sought to establish the hermetic tradition which remained active throughout many secret societies, drawing inspiration from Near Eastern traditions, Hermetic, Gnostic, Kabbalist, Sufi, Druzes, and later alchemical Rosicrucians and Masonic. For this work, she called upon the assistance of Colonel Olcott, who took a room on the floor above her at the Le Mazarie on 47th Street in New York. Olcott's task was to correct every page of her manuscript and to help her express her ideas that she could not frame to her liking in English. From this point on, the writing of Isis went on intensively and without a break until its completion in 1877. Olcott attested to Madame Blavatsky's claim that the material for the book was derived from the astral light of her masters. Blavatsky describes the experience in the following way. Space and time do not exist for thought, and if the persons are in perfect mutual magnetic rapport, and of these two one is a great adept of occult sciences, then thought transference and dictation of whole pages become as easy and as comprehensible as the distance of 10,000 miles as the transference of 2 words across the room. Alcott said that he never knew anyone who could be compared with Madame Blavatsky's dogged endurance or tireless working capacity. Keep in mind that at this time there was no manual nor electric typewriters yet available. Also keep in mind that English was Madame Blavatsky's 3rd language, Russian was her 1st and French 2nd, and she had only learned to write it 3 years prior. In his book, Old Diary Leaves, Colonel Alcott describes Madame Blavatsky's work style. To watch her at work was a rare and never to be forgotten experience. Her pen would be flying over the page when she would suddenly stop, look out into space with the vacant eye of the clairvoyant seer, shorten her vision as though to look at something held invisible in the air before her, and begin copying on her paper what she saw. The quotation finished, her eyes would resume their natural expression, and she would go on writing until again stopped by a similar interruption. I remember well 2 instances when I also was able to see and even handle books from whose astral duplicates she copied quotations into her manuscript, and which she was obliged to materialize for me to refer to when reading the proofs, as I refused to pass the pages for the strike-off unless my doubts as to the accuracy of her copy were satisfactory.